Ooh, 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 ooh. You felt that? Did you feel it? Oh my goodness! Electric cars. Why the hell do you guys watch this show? What the hell's wrong? Dear God, what the hell is in this tea? I don't know what it is, but child, it's so good to see all of you here. Welcome to the Sabby and JB show on Revolutionary Blackout Network. Come on in! Come. Have a seat. Spread yourself out. Put your feet up. And let us be your entertainment for the evening. So good to see you guys. Today is Thursday, March 2nd, 2023. Of course, you guys got me, your lovable schlub. But then even better, you got Sabby Subs. Boom! Say what's up, Sass.
What's going on, JB?
How you doing, sis? You doing all right? You're talking about how tired you are.
Listen. I woke up extra early and not on purpose, and I have been awake since. So yeah, it's been a long day.
It's been a long day. Sorry. But yeah, I mean, the thing is that I know exactly what it's like because I gotta get up super early for dialysis, and then as soon as I get home, I'm like, it's like somebody took a wine bottle and said, "Hey, JB," whack, and then next thing you know, I'm asleep, and so you haven't got a chance to sleep yet, so you're just like, somebody worked my last nerve today. It's gonna be on. So, yeah, but it's good to see you. Everybody, good to see you guys here. Just let you guys know that Sabby and JB show is live every single Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can also catch Sabby on her RBN show tomorrow evening on Fridays at 6 p.m. Eastern. You can also catch me here on RBN on Sundays at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. As well as Sabby, you also have your show tonight as well. Give them a little taste of what's going on tonight, just to wet their whistle.
Oh, we're going to be talking about the Supreme Court hearing about student loan debt. We're going to talk about that. Yeah, going to cover that. And also I'm going to cover Hakeem Jeffries apparently decided to play cop. So we're going to talk about that. As well as Michigan ballot initiative results. So should be a pretty good show.
Okay, cool beans. So I'm working on what's going to be happening on on Sunday from my show on RBN, but it's going to be good. I think I already have my guests set up. I'm just trying to make sure I get confirmation, but you guys will know. Just stay tuned to RBN. You'll know. But yeah, so that's going to be an interesting show. And then, of course, next week, I have my channel. Of course, Sabby has her channel. And the links to our personal channels are also in the description just for you guys, just in case you guys didn't know. So we do that as well. So I might need to step out for a second because if I'm breaking up once in a while.
Do you have other tabs open?
I do. Let me take this down. And then I'll take that down too. It shouldn't be that bad. So yeah, those are the only tabs I have up. Am I still clear?
No, you might have to come back in.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the connection, and then I'll come back in. Okay.
Cool.
So yeah. So let me disconnect.
All right, guys, I'll go ahead and shout some of you guys out. Thank you so much for the super chat. Tiberius Monk coming back to the YouTubes are Sabby and JB, them wonderful, fantastic revolutionaries. Cue the Arsenio Hall. Whoop, whoop. Cheer. For those who don't know, Arsenio Hall was a late night, well, actually not that late, but late night talk show host I really loved Arsenio Hall show, but he used to do this thing where he goes whoop 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 whoop. So like he started a thing with that. But thank you so much, Tiberius. Gonna go to some of the comments here. Yeah, so we're gonna be talking about Snowpiercer. I don't know if you've seen the movie, so if you haven't, spoiler alert. But Snowpiercer is very, very key to capitalism and class in society. Now it's in the future, but it's not that far in the future. So we're going to get into all of that. But it is a great movie, and I highly recommend that you watch it if you have not seen it. Highly recommend. You're better now, JP. You're great.
I am. I'm great.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm great. Yeah. Okay.
You're
Where'd
great.
you start? Where did I stop? Where did we leave off at? Because I'm trying to.
I shouted out the super chat.
Okay.
And cool. I told them what we're going to be talking about.
Okay, cool. Shouting out people who are also in the chat because they make it quick because we got to get some stuff to go. All right, whoever comes up says, "What up, comrades? Good to see you." Whoever. We have Joyce coming in saying, "Hey, everyone, long time no see. See time no long." Joyce, see time no long. All right. But Chico Rone saying, "Hey, hey, wait, hey, hey." Sorry, I get that from Star Wars. Anywho, we have Sakuro saying, "You're." All right. Who else we got up in the chat? Who else? Let me see. All right. We have Greg in the chat saying, "Great movie." Yes, absolutely. Old Man Barker says, "Hey, buddy. Hey, you're there. Eh? All right." EMK says, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah." All right. Wait, remember, Sabby, remember on Merry Melodies when you would hear, I think it was Daffy Duck, he'd be like, "Yeah, mule, yeah, 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 mule." Sorry, it just reminded me of that. Anyway, Bryce Smith saying, "What's up, Sabby and Jaybe?" What's up, Bryce? All right.
Hello, Bryce.
All right. Sean Miller saying, "You're." We have a lot of "you're."
Mm-hmm.
Tina Davis says, "Hello, good peoples. Tina, baby, good to see ya. Pitchforks are coming and pitchforks are going. Good to see ya." Desert Mantis is also in the chat. Sean Miller, you got this. Whoever, you got this. Yep, you got it, baby. Of course. And a thank you from me to Tiberius Monk for the super chat as well. So many people are now members now that it's hard for me to see the, because I keep seeing the same person twice, and I'm like, did I hit that person yet? Did I get to them yet? I'm just like,
I know, yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, Desert Mantis saying, "JB giving that lumberjack look." Yeah, baby, you want me to chop you some wood?
He's the brawny man. Brawny man.
Just kidding.
You could do an Old Spice commercial now.
Oh yeah. Look at your men, now back to me. Now back at your men, now back to me. Bad Cookies. Hey, good to see you, Bad Cookies. All right, up in the Chizat. All right, CBC voters up in here. Good to see you. Hello, Gamer for Life is also up in here. All right, we have Mastermind Hour, not Mastermind Minute, Mastermind Hour. Break me up, show me what you got, because I don't want no 1 minute, man. Ooh.
That's a Missy Elliott song for those who don't know.
Yep.
Yeah.
Frank, good to see you. All right. I am not going to go too much further. Everybody else, good to see you. Oh, hey, Right Brain. Good to see you. Hi. All right. Another good film by the same director about capitalism. Oh, I saw Parasite. Parasite was good.
It's the same director for Snowpiercer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Cool. And you know how Parasite focused a lot on class? So same thing with Snowpiercer.
Ooh. Look, like I said in the description, truth is sometimes stranger than fiction, and sometimes truth is worse than fiction in many ways. So there is, as far as the subject for today that we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about the movie Snowpiercer. And as you guys can see here, we have from the movie Snowpiercer. And I titled it A Capitalist Tale because that's basically what this is. It's a tale of what capitalism is. And really, a lot of times people don't really think about the grotesques of capitalism, but that's really what it displays. And you think about this, you think about Parasite, you think about Squid Game, things like that. You really start to see it is really just a reflection of what capitalism is back on our faces, and we're looking at it, we're going, ooh. But at the same time, it's like that. Okay, that is like having a gash on your leg, and you see the gash in the mirror, and you're like, whose leg is that? Oh my God. And they're going, that's your leg. And we're like, yep. What?
That's right. That's right. If you put the graphic back up, JB, I want to explain to them who people are on that graphic. So on this graphic, besides me and JB, on the left side, you have one class of people. And on the right side, you have another class of people, the protectors, so to speak, or protecting that other class of people. And in the middle, you have Chris Evans and you have Ed Harris. And Chris Evans is obviously the main character in this movie. And we'll get into it. We have a reaction video to react to, which kind of really breaks it down, the class situation. And I really think, like I said, if you have not seen this movie, you definitely need to watch it. You can watch it on YouTube, by the way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. All right. So let's get into it because some people may have not seen this. And so, let me get to the super chat really quick right before we start because I want to make sure I get to it. All right. Tiberius Monk says, I love the director of Snowpiercer. His other films, The Host, and especially Parasite are incredible. Thank you so very much for that as well. Anything else that comes in as far as super chats, we'll get to those a little bit later, which making sure that they start, okay? Now, I had taken it down because
you want me to play it?
Either or. I got it coming up right here already.
Okay.
So
yeah, my celebrity husband is in this movie. Everybody has one. Everybody has one. You got one too, JB.
Girl, I got a few. What are you talking about? You talking about I got a. I mean, try they. What the hell are you talking about? Talking about a celebrity husband. Sabby, you know me, girl. Homie, you know me.
Frank don't have one. Bad Cookies don't have one. Come on, everybody has a celebrity husband or a celebrity wife or girlfriend or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Y'all got eyes.
I'm looking away from the comments now.
Okay, let's go here. I typically watch heavy spoilers quite often, actually, especially after I see a movie because a lot of times they'll do breakdowns and stuff. Heavy spoilers is really good. Also, New Rockstars is also pretty good too. They also do a lot of great breakdowns too, but heavy spoilers is also great. So, all right, let's start.
Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host, Definition, aka the guy who makes Chris Evans look like Chris Evans, and this video we're breaking down Snowpiercer. The TV adaptation is just about to drop, so there's never been a better time to revisit the movie and discuss all of the ins and outs of it. Throughout this video, we'll be breaking down the film's overall plot, its many messages, and the overall meaning to its ending. There will be heavy spoilers here, so if you haven't had a chance to check out the film yet and don't want anything ruined, then I highly recommend that you turn off now. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, as we're going to be doing breakdowns on the show episode by episode, and you don't want to miss any of the coverage. Anyway, with that out of the way, thank you for clicking this. Now let's get into our breakdown of Snowpiercer. Okay, so Snowpiercer is a high-concept post-apocalyptic film that not only talks about our society as a whole, but how human nature and greed often get in the way of doing the right thing. In the early 2000s, global warming was slowly starting to devastate the planet, and in an attempt to cool down the Earth, scientists launched rockets into the stratosphere. This backfired and created a frozen wasteland in 2014 that wiped out the majority of the species. Those that were able to bought or snuck their way onto a train built by a genius engineer known as Wilford. The train was built by the mechanical magnate to circulate the world until the ice had melted and humanity could venture back outside and try to rebuild civilization. In some ways, it's similar to Noah's Ark.
Okay, so basically to explain like the backstory about this, this is like 2031. So I said it's in the future. It's not that far in the future.
Yeah.
And basically, they were trying to find a way to stop the climate crisis. So there were scientists that came up with a way to do that, and it actually backfired. And it turned the entire world into basically like this frozen wasteland. Like everything froze, people froze. So anybody who didn't make it on that train before all of that happened, they died. They froze to death. In the whole world. So that train was created by Ed Harris's character, and that train it's able to withstand the freezing temperatures. So as long as you're on the train, you're fine. Now you can imagine what it must have been like, everybody trying to get on that train at that time. So of course, there are people trying to like beat each other up to get on the train, that kind of thing. But the train doesn't stop. The train continues just moving, and it's built in a way that it can cut through ice. So it just keeps going. The train is like nonstop, and it goes all around the world. And everybody on the train is pretty much, for the most part, safe from the frozen, the freezing temperatures outside of that train. But you can't get off the train. If you get off the train, you'll die.
Yeah, and the thing is that a lot of what we are going through, especially in times now, like we are constantly being faced. We're constantly at the face of a climate catastrophe, and you have some scientists that want to do things. I don't know. I'm trying to see if I can find it on Twitter again, but there was something about scientists talking about trying to put a big mirror in space so that they can reflect some of the rays of the sun, so that they can cool down the earth so it doesn't get too overheated. But I'm just like, this is going to lead to the same thing that we have in these post-apocalyptic movies. I mean, what did they do in The Matrix? What did they do? They actually blocked out the sun to keep the machines from using solar energy. And so now that's why the sky is the way it is. It's just like, we already see our demise in front of us. And instead of actually changing it from the ground up, especially in capitalism, we just try to keep capitalism going by shifting the environment of the earth instead of shifting ourselves to adapt to Earth's environment the way it's supposed to be.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
All right. So with that, let's get back. All right.
Try to rebuild civilization. In some ways, it's similar to Noah's Ark, and there are a lot of biblical metaphors laced throughout. Wilford, in some ways, is a god. He's referred to as malevolent, the children study him in school, and there's almost a cult-like worship of him. Wilford is also omnipresent throughout the train, almost able to see all, and he has created the ecosystem on board it, providing all those with food, water, and life.
Sounds like he's capitalism.
Yeah, and something I wanted to mention here, when they say that the kids learn about him in school, that's true, but not every child gets to go to school. You see, even the people on the train are divided in reference to class. And that's the part that's really key and crucial about this movie, is that they show you, even though life pretty much ceased to exist on Earth outside of that train, they still divided the people on the train based on class. In a time you would have thought everyone would have come together, but you'll see why they're divided the way that they're divided.
Yeah. Okay, let's continue.
Evolution is also a key word, as it not only highlights the movement that we follow on the train, but also the train itself. Each time it comes full circle, it's known as a revolution, and this is a nice tie back to the overall plot itself. We pick up with the train in 2031 and see the class structure that exists within it firsthand through the eyes of Curtis. Those in the tail of the train have had to resort to cannibalism, are punished for speaking up, and live day to day obsessed with surviving. Their arms are frozen and broken off as punishment, they're split apart from their families, and their children are abducted for a purpose which I'll get into later. They're also fed protein blocks, which we discover through the film are actually made out of insects, and if you are what you eat, then this definitely highlights how the people that exist within the tale are viewed. Their class...
Woo!
Yeah, one thing I want to say about the people who have to eat the protein bars that are made out of cockroaches, those people are the working class people. So what happened is that, like, when it became time to get on this train was actually meant for people who are upper class, like people who are, upper middle class, people who are rich. It was mainly meant for them, but they allowed people who were working class to sneak onto the train because they still needed them for a different purpose. And see, that's the thing. Like, just like in reality, it's like they allow, the billionaires, they allow working class people to exist because they need us for a purpose.
Yeah.
But they try their best not to allow us to get to their status. So the people who are working class, they're stuck on the back of the train. Like the train is divided by class. So the working class people are in the back in crowded, tight space. And the wealthy people are up in the front of the train with everything. And they get real food. They're not eating protein bars made out of roaches. But the people in the back of the train, before they were even giving them those protein bars, they resorted to cannibalism and they started to eat each other because they weren't giving them any food at all at first.
But that's like a metaphor of how it is really in the poor neighborhoods. We technically, in a sense, eat each other because we commit crimes of desperation and opportunity in order to survive. This is why there's a lot of gun violence in poor neighborhoods. This is why there's a lot of robberies, break-ins. Even when it comes to how we develop within these type of environments, there's a lot more violence. There's a lot more, there is the way we speak to each other, the way we treat each other. It's really, part of it is because we are products of the environment that we're subject to within a capitalist system. And because of that desperation and lack of opportunity, then we just go after each other, so to speak, because it's like, where else do we go? We have no choice but to kind of, in a sense, eat our own in a way. That's what it feels like.
That's exactly what happens. And even now, like, if you notice the people who make it out, and they'll show this later on in the clip, but the people who get out of poverty, or they get out of that type of class like status, right? A lot of times you'll hear people from that community say that they didn't give back to the community. Like, they made it and they just pieced out and forgot about the rest of us. That's also hinted at in this movie as well. Like, if you're given that option to get out, are you going to really try to continue to help the people in the back of the train? So long story short, there are some people on that train that were born on that train. So like Chris Evans' character, he first got on that train when he was 17 years old. And there were people back there in the working class part that they produced while they were on the train. Now you would wonder, well, if the train is overcrowded or whatever in the back, why would they let them reproduce? Because they need those kids for something, which you'll find out later on. But there's also overcrowding in the back of the train, so they also find ways to get rid of a certain number of people so
Hold
that
her.
they can maintain balance.
Yeah, and just another thing is about the protein bars. That's indicative of what, especially when we have food deserts and the only food that we have to eat is the junk that they actually create.
Yep.
So that is also indicative of that. It's like, okay, we're fed basically, in a sense, trash. Because, like, for instance, stovetop stuffing, Mountain Dew, and Doritos are illegal to be sold in European countries.
Mm-hmm.
Why? Because they don't want us to, because they don't want their people to eat that, because they see it as trash. So therefore, why are we eating it? But the thing is that that's what's made for us. And it's crazy how, man, this is so many parallels. Okay, I'm ready to go again. This is crazy. All right.
As freeloaders because they snuck onto the train, berated by political figures, and undervalued. However, we discover at the end of the film that they provide an essential service. The film carries the message that, in the face of inequality, all the lower class can do is revolt. It's something that definitely feels more relevant today, especially in the wake of lockdown, and we are often asked whether the economy is worth more than human life. It's something that this movie tackles with too, and it becomes clear throughout the film that those in the tale are merely kept alive in order to allow the rich to survive and keep the train moving. I'll get into this more as we go further into the video, but you quickly realize that the top 5 and 1% have basically imprisoned the lower class in a system that they aren't really able to rise up and escape from.
I like how he says imprison them in a lower class.
Yep.
Because then that takes the responsibility off of the people in the lower class. Because a lot of times people say, well, you made that choice. It's like, no, we didn't make that choice. We were in prison, meaning the action was actually not on us. The action was actually on the people at the top that put us in this system. I love how you put it that way.
Yeah, like they'll allow you, notice they allowed them to get on the train, but that doesn't mean they're going to allow them to actually have the same benefits as the people who are wealthy who are on that train. And it's really, they said they have a political figure, that woman that they showed, she's more like authoritarian figure. And she's basically the one bossing people around, cutting off people's arms. Like, again, just the back of the train, that working class part of the train. And it's really crazy. So the part that they just mentioned where he said the only way for them forward is to revolt. Now, this goes back to what we discussed about a revolution, right? For people to rise up and push back against the top 1%. So that's what most of this movie is about, like them choosing to revolt and try to push back against those people. But then you find out something later on, which is that that's exactly what the ruling class at the front of the train, that's exactly what they wanted them to do. It gets more into it, but yeah.
All right, cool.
Moment at the beginning in which a violin player is requested to go to the front. I think this symbolizes how those born poor often only manage to escape it through either theatrical talents or sport. It's very much a case of, if you're unable to entertain, then you'll be stuck in a prison in which you are solely used as a commodity. After another devastating child abduction, Curtis's father figure Gilliam decides it's time to start a revolution. They decide that in order to control the train, they have to get control of the engine. Initially, there's a lot of fear surrounding this, and most just want to mind business, preferring to live day to day rather than sacrificing themselves for the greater good. I told you it was laced with social commentary. However, after they realize that the guards have no ammunition due to having to stop so many revolutions in the past, they decide to move forward. They free a prisoner known as Nam Goong, a chronal addict that worked as a security specialist on the train before he was jailed. Chronal is actually a drug used to subdue prisoners on the train and put them into suspension, but it was modified for street use and passed down the tail. Nam Goong becomes a great ally, and along with his clairvoyant daughter Yona, the rebels make their way up the train. Here they notice an iced over plane that is slightly visible, whereas the year prior it wasn't, and this shows that the ice is beginning to unthaw. You really get the feeling that Curtis is willing to do anything for his revolution, and he even sacrifices his friend Edgar in order to capture a high-ranking official known as Minister Mason. Curtis makes his way up the train with Mason. Nam Goong, Yona, Gray, Tanya, and Andrew. The latter of the two had their children taken from them in the beginning, and their fate ties into the end. The movie is laced with incredible action scenes as the rebels make their way up the train, and we see lavish carriages such as a Garden of Eden-like greenhouse, an aquarium, classroom, and more. The classroom is indoctrinating the children, and the teacher...
You see, these are all the, once they can get past, that engineer that they freed from the prison helps them get past the gates, because he knows the code to the gates to open them so they can get to other parts of the train. Once they get to the section of the train where the rich people are, then they start to see what's actually on that train. So you got to keep in mind, like Chris Evans' character has been on that train for 17 years. And that's the first time he realizes this train has an aquarium. They have classrooms. They have like a greenhouse. They have a swimming pool. They have a club. Like they have everything that we have right now on that train. And they were not allowing the working class people to use any of those resources. They even have a chef that makes sushi for people.
Wow.
So it's like an exaggeration of first class versus economy seat. But they when they get to the front of the train, you do realize they had a lot of room up there. They could have let them stay up there as well, but that's not why they let them get onto the train. They had to have them at the back for a reason.
Yeah. And this made me laugh, Seth. Frank said, "Is that train run by Norfolk Southern?"
Oh my God.
That was funny. I thought I was like, oh Lord. Oh, Frank.
Oh man, Frank. That one was rough.
Yeah. That was a good one though. That was a good one. I had to give it to you.
That's Steve.
Oh no.
Mayor Pete's the engineer. Oh my gosh. Wow.
All right, let's continue.
There attacks the rebels. In the tale, a staff member of Wilford known as Franco executes Gilliam, and angered by this, Curtis returns the favor by shooting Mason. The group go forward, but Franco catches up and shoots at them from the classroom. He stalks them and kills Tanya and Gray in a spar carriage, but Namgung fights with Franco and seemingly manages to kill him. Curtis promises to find Tanya's son Timmy, and they head upwards. It's here that we learn of Curtis's past and all the things that he's had to do to survive. It's revealed that the Tailies resorted to cannibalism in order to get by, and that Curtis almost ate Edgar as a baby. Gilliam gave Curtis his arm instead, and thus he was able to live. I believe that this metaphorically shows that those in the 1% are willing to let those below fight amongst themselves and literally eat each other in order to take their eyes off who's really in power.
There you go.
This is why we talk about stop going after one another, and we need to really start going after.
Yep. Oh, I think you froze, JB, but I'll add on to what you're saying. It's really unfortunate because this is basically what happens right now. Like in society, this is what happens, where like people who are working class and poor, they fight among each other, but they don't fight back against the 1%, the people who are keeping them in that poverty situation in the first place. This also goes back to policing. And this is why we've said this before. Policing protects what? They protect capital. They protect wealth. They don't protect people in poor and working class neighborhoods. They continue to allow the crime rates to be high in those areas. They're not really trying to protect those people. So that's a big part of it. And I think that, yeah, all one same property is the problem. Yeah, this is a big part of the problem. Like they know that Chris Evans' crew, the people at the back of the train, they know they have nothing. They took all of their stuff. One of the things you find out when they first boarded the train is that any belongings or possessions that they had with them that they brought on board, the rich people and Willow, they took their belongings away from them so that they had nothing. What does that sound like when you compare it to today? So what they have done is they've basically developed a system on that train where the poor people in the back of the train depend on the wealthy people to keep them alive because they have those protein bars. Like that's where they get the food from. It's delivered to them. And then the wealthy people on the train, they depend on the poor people still being on that train because they serve a balance for the train. So what you find out later on in the movie is that Ed Harris's character, he's the guy who made the train. He's the quote unquote the real engineer of the train that nobody really usually gets to see. What you find out is that everything on the train had to be balanced in order for it to work. So they had to have people. Well, what he says is they had to have people at the back of the train. And when they were like procreating, they needed to have the children to do certain things with the engine at the front of the train. But once it's overpopulated, they would just walk back to the back of the train and they would just shoot some of the people. They would just kill them. Now, how far off is that from what happens to poor people and working class people today?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sorry. My internet went kaput right when I was talking, so sorry about that. But I'm back. But yeah, that's a good question, Sabs.
Yeah, it's something that happens. I mean, it's yeah, they're not like rich people aren't walking into poor and working class neighborhoods and just killing all the people, but they're doing it in other ways. They're doing it in other ways. They're giving you crappy food. Some of these communities don't have grocery stores, so you have to eat crap just like the people on the train had to eat those protein bars made out of roaches, right? They make sure the schools are underfunded, so they're giving you a lack of less education than people who are wealthy are going to get. And they keep you in a perpetual state of poverty, which is going to continue to make the crime rate high. So I think they kill you. It's a different type of kill. And then there's also the environmental pollution that happens in those neighborhoods as well.
Yeah. Remember what the guy who does bar rescue, John Tapper, remember what he said? He said he likes to keep his dogs hungry because if they're hungry, then they will do whatever is necessary in order to protect the property. It's just like that's how they feel about us. If they keep us hungry, if they keep us under the threat of being homeless, if they keep us wanting to compete with each other, that means that we're going to do the best for them as masters as we can. And that's how they look at us. They see us as pawns for them in order to keep their lives better. That's all it is. That's what it feels like to me.
I want to go to what Brian said. Brian said, this is why all of our movies and TV shows are about identity, so they don't have to talk about class. That's a good point, Brian. I want to tell people, for those who are just joining, Snowpiercer was directed by the same guy who directed Parasite. So another one of those films that's really popular. What's popular internationally now, but really popular in South Korea. They do tend to talk about class a lot. I've noticed that, but race is not an issue on this train. That's another thing I forgot to mention. Race is not an issue. Like there's black people on the train, there's white people on the train, but everything on this train is solely done by class. Just FYI.
Yeah. So let's continue. Thank God I got it back. Anyway, let me continue.
Can't fight those at the top if they're fighting amongst themselves, and it definitely mirrors our society in several ways. It reminds me of how people often blame immigrants, those on benefits, and the lower rungs of society for being the problem because that is what they're fed by the press. However, these groups often don't have any real power, and therefore we are pointing the blame in the wrong direction. After becoming cannibals, they were then given protein blocks in order to be thankful for the little that they had, whilst those further up the chain still lived their lavish lifestyles. The survivors reach the last car before the engine, which is sealed, but Namgung and Yona reveal that Chronol is an explosive, and just as they're about to blow open a hole to the outside, Wilford opens the door. Claude, one of Wilford's staff, shoots Namgung, and Curtis goes into the engine room to meet Wilford face to face. It's here that we get the big twist that really sends Curtis off the rails. I'm sorry, you know how to do a bad pun at least once. Anyway, the twist is that Gilliam was actually working with Wilford to cause the rebellion. This was in order to reduce the population in the tale. He had allowed them to become cannibals to weed them out and then allowed them to thrive once more. The revolution was once more a sacrifice in order to keep the ecosystem alive. Wilford enlisted Gilliam, but really he viewed him as replaceable as the rest of those in the tale.
Can you pause for a second?
Mm-hmm.
So this gentleman, Gilliam, with the glasses, the older gentleman, he was basically an infiltrator.
Mm-hmm.
Does that sound familiar to you guys? He was an infiltrator. He was back there with the working class people, but he was actually working for Wilford, the guy who created the train the whole time. And he encouraged them to do a rebellion, to revolt, which is exactly what Wilford told him to do.
Mm-hmm.
Does that sound familiar?
Yeah.
Infiltrators.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so it just goes to show that people like that, they may be some of the ones who will make a sound like they're trying to get you to revolt, but at the same time, they'll do it in such a way where it really doesn't work, but they make you feel like it's going to work. Yep. And a lot of people are saying Bernie right now in the chat, and I'm like, well, look, if the shoe fits, wear it, baby. Because, yeah.
This one, Methical Madness, I think you mean they put people in the back of the train is akin to the population of the global South and the poor around the world being killed either through war and being used to mine microchip production elements. Wow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is that you got some of us that we may not be at the very back of the train. We may be at the front of the back of the train here in the United States. And some of us are going, yeah, but we're not at the way back in the train. So therefore, we got to keep ourselves within this frame of mind, and we got to just keep our head down so that we don't go even further back to the back of the train.
Yep.
So that's why some people are afraid to even, try to change the system from the ground up in a meaningful way, because they're afraid that they'll be put even further back. And the thing is like, it doesn't matter because you're still being exploited and used anyway.
Yeah.
So you might as well fight for something that you believe in.
You can find it on YouTube, Steve. It's not on Netflix. Just letting Steve know where it's at.
Yeah. So let's continue. This is interesting.
Management scenario in which Gilliam was given a tiny bit of power, but in the end he was just a puppet that suffered with the rest of them, believing he was better because he had some authority. Wilford argues that the people up top are in just as bad a position as those in the back, and that every aspect of society has its cons. At the end of the day, how good you have it though all depends on luck and privilege. Wilford then offers Curtis his position, allowing him to control the same system that he fought against. He paints out the portrait that there's no other way than what the system established, and that those must live in poverty in order to support the important people of the world. Curtis almost accepts this job until riots force Claude to check outside, and Yona overpowers her. Yona rushes into the engine room and reveals a floor panel that has Timmy within it. In order to keep the engine going, Wilford really crossed the line. Children under 5 are small enough to fit into it, and they're used to keep the train going manually. Curtis rescues Timmy at the cost of his arm, but it's clear that the children there are very much brainwashed into believing Wilford's ideal. One sacrifices themselves in order to go into the reactor, and it shows that if you teach children from a young age that the system is supposed to be a certain way, that they will follow it forever. To me, this reflects how child labor is still used across the world, and we turn.
So this piece is very important. The reason why they were allowing the people in the back of the train to reproduce is because only a child is small enough to fit into those spots in the train where they control the engine. Only a child can fit into those spaces. because they're small enough. So that's why they allowed them to continue to reproduce. And that part there where he said, if you teach children at an early age that this is how things are supposed to be, they'll just continue to do it without question. And that's what was happening. Like one of the kids tried to sacrifice himself to keep the train going because he had already been brainwashed by Wilford that nothing else matters but this train. This train has to continue to move.
Yep. And like I said, truth is worse sometimes than fiction, because there's an article out of Reuters that says U.S. company fined for hiring kids to clean meat packing plants. So this is a story that a lot of people are now talking about, how you have children that are now, even when they're in school, they're falling asleep, they're coughing up blood, literal blood coughing up, because they are subject to blood pathogens and things like that within these meatpacking plants, having to clean bone saws and things like that in order to make some money for their families in order to survive. It is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm. That's why they use the children, because there's spaces that they can fit into that adults can.
Yeah. So I'll be talking about that on I'm gonna try to talk about that on Sunday, but it's just wild. I'm telling you, Sabs. So yeah. So let's get back to this explanation. Oh boy.
A blind eye to it because it's part of the industries that benefit us with material items. Apple, Samsung, and more have all been exposed for using companies that thrive on child labor, but we still support them because of what they've given us to make our life easier. This is very much what Wilford represents. Outside, Namgoon kills Franco, explode the chronal on the door, which sets off an avalanche that derails the train. Namgoon and Curtis shield Timmy and Yona from the explosion by wrapping themselves around them, and thus are able to survive because they sacrifice themselves for the future ideals. Yona and Timmy are the only survivors of the wreckage, and they make their way outside. They don't instantly freeze and they actually spot a polar bear, which shows that life has started to return to the planet. This means it may be possible for them to survive, but there's actually a lot more going on. To me, this is almost an Adam and Eve-like metaphor, and they've gone forth into a new world in order to create it. To build a new way of doing things, they had to bring the old systems crashing down, and this required revolution, ousting those in power, and sacrifice. However, they were able to accomplish it. The train itself, in some ways, can be seen as a prison. Throughout the movie, those from the back move to the front, but ultimately, they're still stuck inside a train. This is a metaphor for how people can progress in society, but ultimately, they're still stuck inside it. The children on board are told that if they go outside, they will die, but clearly, this isn't the case, and we must question the things that we are taught and whether they're actually the truth or not. Though the future for the two initially seems bleak, director Bong Joon-ho confirmed that they do survive and go on to repopulate the human race. This shows us that there is hope, and though change initially seems scary, we can push ourselves through and make something out of it. Now,
can you pause?
Man.
So what people have to understand is they used that drug that they were giving the prisoners and used it to blow one of the doors off the train. When they did that, that created an avalanche, which derailed the train. Speaking of derailed trains, derailed the train. And so everybody on the train died except for her and the little boy. And yes, they even killed off my celebrity husband. They killed Chris Evans off the movie. It was messed up.
I'm sorry.
No. But Chris Evans basically sacrificed himself to stop the train. Like he had to actually, someone just pointed it out. I think I started. Yeah. Thank you, Brian. And then with the ending, how do you stop the machine? You throw your body on the gears. And that's what Chris Evans did to stop that train. And so what people have to understand is that most of the people from the back of the train died. Like as part of like the revolution, half of them had already died before they even crossed like half the train. Like there were fights along the way. So when people talk about revolution, like a physical revolution, obviously there's going to be lives that are going to be lost. And in the end, you see it was just those two who made it out. And you also see that, guess what? The temperatures outside aren't freezing temperatures anymore, which means they could have gotten off the train after all.
Yep. And they could have all did it together, and they probably would have went further and faster into a more egalitarian and equitable society. But because they were so stuck in that way of life, they didn't even think to get off the train to see. They didn't even put out probes to see, well, maybe we can do it now. So
yeah, they didn't even try. Like they said, there were people that tried before in the past, and they were like, that's them right there. That's how far they got. And they were frozen. But keep in mind, again, they had been on the train for 17 years, you guys. So what was happening at that point was that eventually life was starting to come back to the planet. The snow and everything was starting to melt.
Yep. And so, that's the thing. We gotta keep that in mind. Let me see if there might be a little bit more left to this. So
now I don't know we should start by tearing everything down, but the last few months have really opened my eyes to how broken everything is. We are willing to sacrifice those that make up the majority in order to keep our systems in place, and it really makes you question whether it's all worth it. Economies bounce back, but as this film shows, human life, if wiped out, does not. We must truly find the value amongst ourselves rather than in the system, and that's why Snowpiercer still carries such a strong message. It's an incredible film that feels even more relevant today than it did with its release 7 years ago, and I really can't get over just how well made this movie is. I definitely recommend it before you watch the release of the show, and hopefully this video has given you a new appreciation for it. Obviously, I'd love to hear your thoughts on Snowpiercer.
Yeah.
Man.
So there's a show too. I don't know if I mentioned it, but they recommend that you watch that movie first before you watch the Snowpiercer show.
Yeah.
So
yeah. But this just goes to show how we are so stuck in a system. Like, for instance, if we want to really go up against the system, a lot of people don't want to. It's not because a lot of times people go, oh, well, we're just so stuck on watching the Kardashians or something like that. And it's like, no, it's not necessarily that. It's that they won't have a place to live if they stop to actually fight the system. They won't have healthcare if they stop to fight the system. They won't have food if they stop to fight the system. So really, it's about us coming together, all of workers. And by workers, I'm not just talking about people in the lower classes. I'm talking about the workers people that tend to think that they have it kind of good. They also need to come with us. And if they got a little extra, then they supply us with that little bit of extra so that we can also help continue to fight against the system so we can dismantle it. Because the thing is that a lot of us, we're at our wits' end. We can't fight because if you don't have food, healthcare, and housing, then what? And so it takes a multi-pronged working class coalition. Working class can also mean people who are making six figures, but they're working for their wages.
Oh, you're breaking up, JB.
I'm sorry. Am I still here?
Yeah, you're still here. You're just you froze.
Oh, okay. But yeah, so yeah, it basically like Siege Black says workers and non-workers, and by workers we mean all workers. So that's what it takes, the entire coalition.
And what was crazy is the only reason he was even keeping them around Wilford, the only reason he was keeping them around to begin with is because he needed them to balance out the train. So it was a weight issue. That was the only reason he even allowed them to get on. Like when you get to the front of the train and you see that like There's people there. There's a bar. There's like a dance club. There's pools. There's like a swimming pool, like on the train. Like all like the wealthier people, they get all of that as if their life didn't really change for the most part, right? But then you see that the people in the back, they don't get any of that. Marco says middle class is just a privileged worker. All workers need to unite against the capitalist class. Well said, Marco.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. And that's why we have to express worker solidarity. And before I got cut off by the connection, like I was saying in East Palestine, right? You have a lot of workers that are now starting to connect the dots. And a lot of them, what they need to get to a point of, and I think he said it so well in that video, was that we need to think to ourselves, the trans people are not our issue. Immigrants are not our problem. Black people are not our problem. The poor people aren't our problem. What the problem is these people that are using homophobia, misogyny, xenophobia, all these things, they're using it as a way to keep us divided so that we don't unite and actually take the system down. That's what they don't want. And every single time, you display some views that may be attacking another disenfranchised group, you're doing the job of the oligarchs for them. This is why when Black people talk about what we go through, it's not just identity politics. No. We're talking about our experience. And if you let these type of views go, whether some of these microaggressions and things like that, that means you bring yourself closer to those of us who are also part of the working class, so that we can actually take the system down. And so that's what it is. It's not just, we're just focused on identity for identity's sake. No, this is a class issue. This is why for Black people, class and race are intrinsically linked. And so if you start to let that go, that identity thing go in your head, as far as wanting to say, oh, you guys talk about race all the time. No, because it's so linked that we have to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
well, I want to shout out what Soul said. Soul said, I call that crab mentality, people taking each other down. Yeah, if you ever heard someone say the phrase crab in a bucket mentality, you have to just imagine a bucket full of crabs that are alive, not crabs that are dead, but crabs that are alive, and them basically trying to fight each other to get, if you're trying to get out of the bucket, it's like you're fighting each other to get out of the bucket, one of the crabs to get out of the bucket, instead of the crabs working together to get everybody out of the bucket. So if you hear someone use that phrase, that's a crab in a bucket mentality, it means that everybody's out for their self instead of working together. Very well said, Saul.
Yeah. And you know what? That kind of goes into how a lot of celebrities, they'll get themselves out of the bucket, so to speak, but never put a ladder down into the bucket in order to help all the other crabs get out.
Nope.
So that's why I'm looking at for instance, you got Ice-T giving Eric Adams a plaque for Hip Hop Award in New York. I'm like, dude, all this money you got and you can't help us out to get out of this? I'm like, yeah, because you're part of the system. That's what it is. And you're doing good, so why try to dismantle the system? And the thing is that I'm not saying it has to be dependent upon him, but what I'm saying is, what are you doing in order to help everybody wake up to the fact that we need to dismantle the system? No, you're just making a show, playing a cop on TV, and keeping all that money and staying where you're at.
Yep, that's exactly what's happening. And I think the thing is that this is the same guy, Ice-T. This is the same guy who wrote a song called Cop Killer. Ice-T hated the police. He hated the police, JB. And now you're giving an award to a former cop?
To a cop.
They all sell out, man. They also, very few stay genuine. Very few. And I think
Man.
this is just something, but I really wanted to talk about this movie because I feel like, again, like I think South Korea is very great at discussing the class element, you know, whether it's Snowpiercer, whether it's Parasite, whether it's Squid Game. Like I think they're really good at this type of issue. And if you have not seen the movie Snowpiercer, you definitely should watch it. And I think that it sends a strong message to people. You notice a lot of these movies are not being made in the United States. Have you noticed that most of the ones about class?
Mm-hmm. Oh, because they won't be. They won't be made in the United States. They can't.
Mm-hmm.
Because if they do, then that means that's a big message that's going out to people. And the funny part is that movies like this actually get a lot of play because it's so real life, it's so true to life that we're literally going, well, yeah. It's just like, for instance, everybody wants to do a movie about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., but they only want to talk about the race aspect of it. They never want to talk about the class aspect of it. And so they'll do slavery movies. Of course, they'll do a slavery movie. But when it comes to our class, they won't do it.
Nope. There's been so many movies that have been released within the past couple of years where the solution to the entire movie could have just been giving everybody Medicare for all. There's John Q.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw that one, JB, but John Q. Yeah.
Oh, I saw it.
John Q was a big message for Medicare for all. There's another one. There's one on Netflix called Emily the Criminal. I think it's Emily the Criminal. That one's student loan debt. She becomes a criminal because she can't pay back these student loans. Like it's so many things we've seen time and time again. There's a show on, I think it's FX, either FX or Fox, but I watch it on Hulu. It's called The Cleaning Lady. Her problem could have been solved immediately if everybody had Medicare for all. The stuff this woman goes through to save her son, to try to prevent her son from dying because he has a medical illness. I'm like, this wouldn't even be a problem if we had Medicare for all. They'll talk about that, but
if we had tuition-free college and if we had housing for all the women in the movie Set It Off would have never did what they did.
Yep. Thanks, Anthony. Breaking Bad. That's another one. Breaking Bad.
Yeah. Yeah. Creative Experiments even said Ant-Man had to do crime too. Yeah. Crazy. It's like
there you go.
All of us, all these people, all these movies are based on people actually having to do something because the system is so bad. And they make a movie based off of that.
And you think crazy, the message would like resonate with more people, but it doesn't. Like people will watch it and say, oh man, that's really unfortunate. That's so sad. People will sit there and they'll watch John Q where they repeatedly complain about the insurance, the health insurance. And then those same people won't understand why people are asking for health care for everyone in this country. It goes right over their head.
Yeah, got here late at 7. Yes, iced tea. Yep, you got it. Yeah, basically. Rome, good to see you.
Rome. Oh, I think I forgot some of the super chats. I'll grab those because there was a couple that came through that I forgot. William. Thanks, William, for the $5. Have you seen the vid Snowpiercer is a seal to Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory? I haven't watched that one yet. That's on YouTube. That's another one, JB, another reactionary one about this movie. Yeah, I ain't seen that one yet. And shout out to Right Brain. Thank you for the $2. Right Brain TV sending love to the whole RBN team.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, while I have all of y'all here, the Oliver Stone documentary, Ukraine on Fire, is actually available on Right Brain TV. I think they took it down from YouTube. So you can't see it on YouTube, but you can see it on Right Brain. And so if you guys want to learn about what's going on in Ukraine, go to Right Brain TV, give them a sub, subscribe to their streaming service, and then you guys can watch those documentaries. It was great. I learned a lot about Ukraine just from that documentary.
I'll check it out. Thank you for letting me know.
Mm-hmm.
What's up? Thank you, Lindsay. Lindsay just became a member.
Whoop, whoop.
And thank you for the $2. Coca-Cola. Snowpiercer is one of my faves. I have the DVD. LOL.
Nice.
Thanks, guys.
That is great. Mm-hmm. And then also, you see, kill your I can't even say the name. Sorry, Egregors says, "Yep." Karl Rove said about extending unemployment. Said, "A hungry dog is an obedient dog." Sinister. Yep. Yep.
This is why I don't like. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead, please.
I was gonna say this is why I don't like the whole Darwin, like Charles, like Darwinism. Because like I get what he was trying to say. Like back then, there were certain species that survived because they were the fittest. It was survival of the fittest. But what I don't like is people will try to take that phrase and they'll try to apply it to situations today that I really don't feel should be survival of the fittest. Like everybody should have food, everyone should have a house, everyone should have healthcare. And I've heard people make that same type of statement that like, well, the people who get out of poverty or whatever, it's survival of the fittest. Like that is a totally different situation. Like, he was talking about animals that did adapt or did not adapt.
Yeah, I mean, there was a video of a guy that was swimming in a pond, and an orangutan tried to help the guy out of the pond. What do you say? What do you say about that? Is that survival of the fittest? Like, no. The thing is that this whole thing, the ideal of survival of the fittest, it is stupid because here's the thing. Humans are different than animals in a way in which we can actually help people become more fit so that they can survive. So therefore, the whole survival of the fittest thing doesn't apply because we can actually continue to preserve the life of people who don't deem that fitness. So why are we subjecting our, other parts of our species to that? We don't have to. Brian says, and then with the ending, how do you stop the machine? Oh, you already read that one.
That's physically what he had to do. He had to put his body in the gears to get it to stop. There was no other way to stop that train.
Wow. That's deep. That is very deep. So yeah, I think that, there's a lot that we have to think about as far as like, how do we proceed? Because there's a lot of people that are going to be, they're starting to go through the motions again of, oh, well, this person's running for president and that person's running for president. And it's like, yeah, but is it continuing the system that we have, or is it changing it? Now, some, they want to actually change it, but for the most part, a lot of them aren't going to want to change the system. They're just going to want to make it either a little bit easier for you on that train, or they're going to make it a little bit harder for you on that train. But nevertheless, they're going to keep you on that train. That's the problem.
Yep.
And we're saying, no, everybody grab a wrench, throw it in the gears. That's what we're saying. Stop the train. Blow a hole in the train. Stop it. So that's what we're saying.
Throw it in the gears and get off the train. Because what would happen, like, honestly, JB, have you ever thought about this? What would happen if one day everyone just decided not to vote anymore? What would happen?
Everybody would realize that that we would still get a chosen leader, and then everybody would realize, oh, we didn't choose anybody. And then they go, these guys are the ones that are running things. And all we have to do is stop them. Because you got to remember, the people who guard them are also part of the working class. That's all I got to say.
Yep. That's the thing, is like, you have to stop the machine.
Mm-hmm.
You really have to stop the machine. That's why I say it doesn't matter who runs. If you don't stop the machine, if you don't break up the duopoly, we will continue to be faced with the same problems.
Yep. Stop
And
the
I think
machine.
I think some people do realize that, but I think most people have just been conditioned to that they really believe that they're making a difference by going out there to vote, that person is actually going to change, especially they're running a two-party system, that they're going to actually change their life and make everything so much better for them. And that's the thing, like, we're kind of in the echo chamber here, but whenever I try not to talk to people about these things that are not a part of media, because when I try to have those conversations with people, most people just look at me like, what? Are you crazy? I mean, are you not going to, why would you not participate at all? Or why would you vote third party? It's a wasted vote. Like, most people are not thinking the way that me and JB are thinking right now. Like, most people are not on that train.
Yeah. That train of thought.
Yeah, that's most of them just not, they're not there. And when you try to talk to them about it, they're just like, you're going to help Trump win. And I'm just like, you don't get it. Like, you just don't get it. It doesn't matter who wins.
Yeah.
It's all the same.
That's like having, it's like having one jerk that's a train conductor versus the nicer guy that's a train conductor. They're still the train conductor on the same train, on the same track, going to the same destination. Like, what? Like, switching the conductor for the same train doesn't matter. If you're still riding in the same car, you have a driver on one side and you have a person on the other side that is also the helper that helps the driver. Whether you have one driver that is someone who is a jerk and he switches places with the other person that's driving the same car, you guys are still going to the same destination.
It's like,
what's the difference?
Yeah, it's like comparing slave masters. It's like, my slave master treats me well. You're still owned.
Mm-hmm. There's good white peoples. You know? Like, what? Like, Sabby, let me share my tweet really quick, because I said this and I hope people really get this concept, because I'm just like, because you know how people go, it's not capitalism, it's crony capitalism, it's corporatism. I said, and I was responding to Robert Durden. Shout out to Robert Durden, saying crony capitalism or hyper capitalism is the blame. It's like saying someone being allergic to potato chips, and you reply, it's not potato chips, it's barbecue potato chips, or it's sour cream and onion potato chips. Nah, fam, it's just potato chips. Same thing with capitalism. I don't care if it's crony capitalism. I don't care if it could be spicy capitalism. It could be sriracha capitalism. It could be sweet teriyaki capitalism. It's still capitalism in the end of the day. This is the problem. And that's what people need to get through their heads. It's like, I don't care. Because the thing is that it all goes to the same process. You can say, Sabby, you can literally say, oh, I'm allergic to potatoes. But these are French fries. It's still potatoes.
Yep.
Or these are au gratin though. But they're still, I put cheese on it. It's still potatoes. That's the problem, baby. So when people talk about, oh, it's not capitalism, it's crony capitalism, it's like, it's the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, look, I put it this way. Do not put sprinkles on a pile of shit and call it chocolate ice cream.
Everyone should watch the movie The Color Purple.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone should watch that movie, because that movie also, there are certain elements of class that movie focuses on as well. Like, a lot of people watch that movie and they see like the racial problems, which that's brought up also in the movie. But there's a big issue with class in that movie, even among the Black community in the movie. Because, like, we know where Cialy's character, where she came from, and she married Danny Glover's character. Remember, Danny Glover's father didn't think she was good enough because she didn't come from anything.
Mm-hmm.
So I just go to show you that like it's one of those things. It's like I still remember the scene where what's her name? Shug? Yeah, Shug comes back, she comes home and she goes, "Hey!" And she's like running down or trying to run down the road, and like her father had stopped talking to her. And she goes, "I's married now." And he's just like, he didn't say nothing, just ghost. And she's like, "I said I's married now." And he just completely ignored her because to him it was just like you're still this, it's still the same problem. It's still the same problem. Like they still had the issue, the class issue. And so I think what is that method? You think Whoopi learned a thing or two in that movie?
Oh Lord, don't get me started.
Sister.
Hey, and remember I showed you that what oh my God, football player. I shared it with you. He said about quarterbacks and I think it's running backs.
Deion Sanders.
Yeah, remember what Deion Sanders? I told you what he said.
Yeah, that was bad.
And that was classism on his part, you know. And if it is, it's like, oh, you don't want a quarterback that comes from a single parent family, or comes from, you know, or has had, you know, issues in school, but they're really good. You don't want that person to be a quarterback. It's like, why? You know what I mean? It's like, oh, because they don't have leadership qualities. They probably do. It's just they come from bad circumstances. But why are you gatekeeping? You know what I'm saying? And so it's the same thing. Just even Black people, you know, can be classist. You know, especially you know when it comes to those of us who come from the lower rungs of society. So. So let me check The Rock. Ah, yes. Let's go to The Rock. The Rock is on fire. All right, we got a couple of let me pop this up. Let me enlarge this. All right, let me share. Wait, did I share? Wait, oh no. JB, get it together, man. What the hell is wrong with me? Oh. All right, so there's a couple of chats on Rockfin. So Aram, thank you so very much. Looking left, looking right, looking up. Roger Meadows shared a link. It says what Darwin actually said. And then Roger Meadows also continues, says, what they talk about to me is I'm helping the GOP presidential candidate. I tell them, dude, we don't live in one of the 11 states that affects the Electoral College. What are you talking about? I shouldn't have voted Dr. Stein. Yeah, exactly. And let me share this link that Roger shared. To Darwin Correspondence Project. This is from the University of Cambridge. And it says survival of the fittest. The phrase survival of the fittest is often incorrectly attributed to Darwin. In fact, it was coined by the philosopher Herbert Spencer in response to reading Origin of the Species 5 years after the first edition was published. Alfred Russel Wallace, whose own theory about the mechanics of evolution was almost identical to Darwin's, wrote to Darwin in 1866 with a lengthy criticism of Darwin's term natural selection and pleaded with him to minimize confusion by adopting survival of the fittest. Darwin introduced the phrase in a few places of his works from the 5th edition of Origin in 1869. However, he never abandoned the term natural selection and only saw survival of the fittest as a synonym or auxiliary phrase to help make his meaning clear to his readers. Interesting. All right. Thank you so very much.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, we're going to be heading out soon, but Sabs, you're talking about some news stories today?
Yeah, we're gonna get into the Supreme Court student loan hearings. We're gonna get into that tonight, and we're gonna talk about also Hakeem Jeffries trying to play cop. So I'm gonna give you an update about that whole situation, about him being confronted by protesters and stuff like that. We're also gonna talk about what it really means to be MAGA. Like Brianna Joy Gray did a good discussion about this with Robbie on Rising. And I'm going to get into that as well. And then also Michigan ballot initiative results.
Nice. Okay. And then I will be doing another reading on my channel for Asada Shakur's autobiography. And so I'll be doing that. And yeah, I'll be talking about some stories on Sunday. So yeah. Oh, by the way, you were on Kim Iverson's yesterday?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yesterday. Wait a minute. Yeah. Yesterday, I was on Kim Iverson's. I had to think about it for a second. I was on Kim Iverson's show on Rumble. She has an exclusive Rumble show. So definitely go check that out. We talked about student loan debt there as well.
Okay. Great. And so this weekend, Nick, our comrade at RBN, is going to be in Seattle this weekend with the workers strike back. That's going to be an awesome. I hope he can live stream the speech. But if he can't, then he'll make sure to play it for you. But I can't wait. I'm so excited for this weekend. So it's going to be good.
Yeah.
Okay.
I might be at the Boston one. I'm waiting to hear back. They did ask me to speak at that one. I do have another appointment that day, but they asked me to speak at it. So I'm just waiting to hear back to see if it's okay if I'm a little bit late. But if so, I would be at the Boston launch for Workers Strike Back. That would be March 11th.
I am excited for that too. I can't wait. It's going to be great. Also, by the way, if you guys have not, if you guys can, we also are fundraising for our graphic designer, so that we can make sure that she's paid a good wage for the labor. And so if you guys go to Venmo at Revolutionary Blackout and then Cash App $Mutual Aid Forever, you actually help us out with Erin. Thank you so very much to Erin for all that she does. And so thank you to everybody for if you guys go onto our mailing list, you guys can go our Substack at Revolutionary Blackout. And then you guys, thank you so much to our patrons on Patreon. Jay the Informant, thank you so much for the super chat. Says one more thing. Did RBN catch Dems in Massachusetts introduce a bill that allows prisoners up to 365 days off sentence for organs or bone marrow?
I did.
This is the second time I'm hearing about this.
Yeah. I knew about it. Mm-hmm.
Stop this train, people. Stop this train. Stop this train.
Yeah. It's local for me, so.
Yeah. Roger says fundraising hit up Kip for a couple of thousand.
Oh,
no, you didn't, Roger. Oh man. Anyway, yeah, there's so much we gotta get into in the next week. But thank you so much to everybody. Love to every single one of you. We're gonna be heading out because Sabby's tired. I was trying to end early, but the conversation was that good. But look, take care, everybody. See you guys at about half an hour for Sabby's show. Make sure be there or be square. All 180 y'all, get out there. We love you. Deuces. Bye. Take it away, Rock.